I'm 29, and I've been married to my husband, Eric, for almost 4 years. We live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where everyone waves but nobody really talks. That suited me fine. I work from home, Eric works late shifts, and we don't have kids, just a big old dog named Ranger who thinks he owns the place. Last Thursday, I heard a knock at the door around 11:30 p.m. Strange, because we never get visitors that late. I was half asleep, curled up with a blanket, watching reruns with the dog snoring beside me. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity, or maybe instinct, got the better of me. When I opened the door, there was a woman standing there. About my age, shivering, crying, mascara streaked halfway down her face. She looked terrified. She didn't say much, just asked if she could use my phone because hers had died and her car broke down 2 streets over. Said she'd been knocking on doors for half an hour and no one answered. I hesitated. Something about her made me pause. She looked like someone who had just come from a club, or maybe a fight. But the way her eyes darted around, the way she kept glancing behind her, it felt like she was being followed. I let her in. Just for a moment. She thanked me over and over. Said her name was Dana. She had an accent I couldn't quite place, but her voice shook like she was freezing. She sat on the couch, curled into herself, and asked for water. I brought her a glass and let her use my phone. She dialed, but whoever she called didn't answer. She hung up quickly and handed it back without saying anything. Then she asked something that made my stomach flip. Is Eric home? I froze. I never told her my husband's name. And that's where this whole nightmare began. I didn't answer her question at first. I just stood there, phone still in my hand, trying to piece together how a total stranger, who had supposedly broken down on a random street, knew my husband's name. My heart rate spiked so fast I could hear it in my ears. I asked her calmly how she knew Eric. Her eyes widened, like she hadn't meant to say that out loud. She gave a quick laugh, but it was nervous and hollow. Said she must have seen a photo, or maybe heard me say his name on the phone. But I hadn't. I hadn't even mentioned my own name. I sat down across from her, keeping the coffee table between us. Something in me had shifted, instincts kicking in. I wasn't scared, not yet. Just alert. Like Ranger, who had stopped snoring and was now sitting up, eyes locked on her like he was picking up a scent I couldn't smell. She started talking again, rambling now. About how she was just trying to get away from someone. She said she was in trouble. That she didn't mean to drag anyone else into it. Then she went quiet. Looked down at her hands. I could see a bruise forming on her wrist, deep purple around the edge. I asked again, this time sharper, how she knew Eric. She looked up at me then, and something in her face changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was pity. She said she didn't want to be the one to tell me, but she figured I'd find out eventually. That's when she told me they'd been seeing each other. 4 months. She met him through work. He never told her he was married. My mouth went dry. My mind tried to reject it outright. Eric's job is in IT, at some corporate office across town. He barely talks about his coworkers. I couldn't even name one. I told her she had to go. I didn't yell. I just stood up and said it as plainly as I could. And that's when she dropped the next bomb. She wasn't just here because her car broke down. She was here because Eric had promised her he'd leave me tonight. And he hadn't shown up. She said it so casually, like it was something normal. Like it made sense for her to be sitting in my living room, waiting for my husband to come pick her up so they could run off together. I asked her again, slowly, what she meant. She didn't hesitate. Eric had told her he was done with me. That he'd been trapped in a loveless marriage for over a year. That he was staying for financial reasons, for appearances. But tonight, he was supposed to end it. He was supposed to pack a bag, leave the house, and meet her at a motel about 15 minutes away. Only, he never showed up. She waited for over an hour. Called him. Texted him. Nothing. Eventually, she drove over to our neighborhood. Yes, she admitted it, she'd been here before. Dropped off, picked up, but never invited in. That's when her car supposedly broke down. So, she walked, hoping maybe he was here. That maybe he chickened out and came home instead of following through. That's when she started knocking on doors. She swore she didn't know which house was ours, just that she eventually saw me through the window and recognized my face. And now here we were. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to believe. The floor felt like it had dropped out from under me. Then my phone buzzed. It was Eric. A single text. Working late. Don't wait up. I stared at it for a long time. Dana saw it too. Her expression darkened, almost sad. She didn't say anything else. I didn't either. Instead, I asked her to leave. Not angrily. Just tired. She stood up, looked like she wanted to say more, then walked out into the night. I locked the door behind her. Double locked it. And I sat there in silence for the next 3 hours, just staring at the wall, trying to convince myself this wasn't real. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with Ranger at my feet and my phone clutched in my hand, scrolling back through every message, every calendar reminder, every late shift excuse Eric had ever given me. It was like my brain had been rewired. Suddenly, the little moments I'd dismissed before were loud and obvious. The nights he'd come home showered. The sudden interest in working out even though he never broke a sweat. The new cologne he said he got from a free sample box. The locked glove compartment in his car, which I never thought to question. I wanted to scream at myself. How had I missed this? I didn't confront him the next day. I couldn't. I didn't know what version of him would walk through the door. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what version of me would be waiting for him. When he got home, it was almost midnight. He looked tired, the kind of tired people wear like a mask. He kissed my cheek absently, gave Ranger a pat, then went straight to the kitchen like it was any other night. Like he hadn't ghosted a woman who was supposedly waiting to run away with him. Like he hadn't detonated my entire world without saying a word. I just watched him. Every movement. Every word. I was quiet, too quiet. And I think he noticed, because he asked if I was feeling okay. I lied. Told him I had a headache and needed sleep. He nodded and said he'd sleep in the guest room so I could rest. That was new. He'd never done that before. And that's when I realized something chilling. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing for something. A shift. A move. Maybe he had gotten cold feet with Dana, but something told me this wasn't over. Something told me there was more beneath the surface, more I hadn't seen yet. And I was going to find it. I waited until I heard the door to the guest room close. Waited longer still until I heard the sound of the old box fan he always used to block out noise. It was a cheap one we kept for guests, but he always turned it on when he didn't want to be disturbed. He didn't know I knew that. I slipped out of bed quietly, heart racing. Ranger stayed behind, which told me even he felt the tension in the air. The house was dark, but I didn't turn on the lights. I moved by memory. My phone flashlight was enough. I went straight to the guest room. The door wasn't locked. I pushed it open slowly, careful not to make a sound. Eric was already asleep, face turned to the wall. I stepped inside and looked around. At first, everything seemed normal: the blankets, a couple of pillows, a half-drunk glass of water. But then I noticed his bag. It was tucked just underneath the nightstand, like he'd meant to keep it out of view but still easily accessible. It wasn't a gym bag or a work bag. It was his old travel duffel, the one he used when we went on weekend trips. I pulled it out and opened it. Inside were 3 neatly folded shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, his passport, a burner phone still in its packaging, and an envelope. I didn't open the envelope right away. My hands were shaking. But I knew, whatever was inside wasn't just about Dana. It was bigger than that. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning to leave. Not just me. Everything. And then I opened it. It wasn't a letter. It was a withdrawal slip. $12,000. Taken out of our joint savings account 3 days ago. I stood there in the dark, staring at the numbers, the date, the signature. And all I could think was, he had already left me. He just hadn't walked out the door yet. I didn't confront him that night. I zipped the bag shut, slid it back under the nightstand exactly how I found it, and tiptoed out of the room with the withdrawal slip tucked into my sleeve. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing with questions I didn't want answers to but needed anyway. The next morning, I called in sick to work. While Eric was in the shower, I logged into our joint bank account. My hands were trembling so bad I kept mistyping the password. But once I got in, everything clicked. There were smaller withdrawals too. Always in cash. Never over $600 at a time. Spread out over the last 4 months. The $12,000 was just the final act. Altogether, he'd siphoned off over $18,000 from our savings, our house fund, our future. There were also charges at places I'd never heard of, restaurants downtown, boutique hotels, even a florist that wasn't local. Always late-night transactions. Always during those overtime shifts. And then I saw a PayPal payment. It was small, $200, but the recipient's name froze me in my seat. Dana. Her last name was there, plain as day. He paid her directly just 2 weeks ago. Why? Why pay someone you're supposedly running away with? Unless this wasn't love. Unless it was something else entirely. I started digging through emails, receipts, even our shared Google Calendar. And that's when I found something I never expected. A rental agreement. Eric had put down a deposit on an apartment under a different name. Not his. Not Dana's. But a name I didn't recognize at all. And yet, the emergency contact listed? It was my husband's phone number. He wasn't planning a getaway. He was building a new life, under someone else's name. And now, I had no idea who my husband really was. The fake name on the rental agreement stuck in my mind like a song I couldn't shake. Caleb Rowe. A name I'd never heard before. But the rest of the details were impossible to miss: Eric's birthdate, his phone number, his email used to sign the lease digitally, just altered to match the alias. I felt sick. I took a screenshot of the document and emailed it to myself from our shared laptop, just in case. Then I started searching. Caleb Rowe wasn't a complete ghost online. I found a burner Facebook profile, bare bones, only a handful of posts. A blurry photo of Eric, but younger. No friends. One tagged check-in, 2 weeks ago, at a bar in a town 40 minutes away. I didn't know what to think anymore. Was Dana even his girlfriend? Or just someone caught in this mess? Was she in on it? Used? Paid off? Nothing added up. I texted her. I still had the number she used on my phone. I didn't accuse her. I didn't ask for an explanation. I just sent 2 words. Who's Caleb? She didn't reply. Not that day. That night, Eric acted like everything was fine. He cooked dinner, kissed me on the forehead, asked how I was feeling, like I hadn't spent the day uncovering the second life he was trying to build behind my back. I nodded, told him I was fine. After dinner, he got a phone call and stepped outside to take it. I watched him from the kitchen window, standing on the patio, talking low and fast. He kept glancing back toward the house like he thought I might be listening. The call lasted 2 minutes. When he came back inside, his face was tight, controlled. I asked who it was. He smiled, said it was work, and I smiled back, because I already knew he was lying. That call had come from a number registered to the same area code as the apartment he'd just rented under a name that wasn't his. He wasn't just cheating. He wasn't just planning to leave. He was planning to disappear. The next morning, I got a reply from Dana. Just one line. Meet me. You need to see this. She sent an address. A coffee shop downtown. Neutral, public, midday. I didn't reply. I just got dressed and went. The place was crowded, noisy. I spotted her instantly, same black jacket from the night she showed up, hood down this time, hair tied back. She looked different. Less frantic. More resolved. She slid an envelope across the table before I could even sit down. Inside were printouts, emails, texts, even a photo of Eric standing outside the apartment complex under the name Caleb. He was holding a key. She told me everything. How she met him months ago on a dating app. How he never gave a last name, just said his was Caleb Rowe. Claimed he was in a complicated situation and couldn't be public yet. That he had money tied up in a divorce settlement and needed a place to crash until it was finalized. He fed her lies. Told her he was still married, yes, but only on paper. That his wife was emotionally unstable and they lived separate lives. He was just waiting on the funds to come through so they could move away together. Start fresh. That was the night he promised to leave and didn't show. She never knew he was Eric. She never knew I existed, until she saw a picture of us online. Apparently, he had slipped. Left a social media tab open on his phone one night. She saw my face. And then she searched. Found our wedding photos. My name. Our home. Everything. That's why she came to my door. Not to confront me. But because she realized she'd been played just as hard. Eric wasn't planning to leave me for her. He was planning to leave both of us. I sat there, stunned, letting it all sink in. He had used us both. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I didn't go home right away. I needed time to breathe, to think. I walked around the block 4 times before I decided what to do. I texted Eric. Told him I wanted to talk. That I'd been thinking a lot. That maybe I overreacted lately, and we should have a nice dinner tonight, just the 2 of us. I suggested a quiet place we used to love, one we hadn't been to in months. He replied almost instantly, sounds perfect. Can't wait. I went home and waited. Calm. Focused. I gathered every document I had, screenshots, the bank transactions, the rental lease, even the burner phone I'd found hidden in his gym bag that morning. I laid it all out on the dining room table, neatly arranged, like a presentation. At 6:50 p.m., Eric walked through the door, dressed up, smelling like the cologne I now knew wasn't free. He saw the table. And stopped cold. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked one question. Who are you really, Eric? He didn't answer at first. Just stared at the papers, lips parted, eyes wide. I could see it all unraveling in his mind, every lie folding in on itself. Then, like a switch flipped, he laughed. Actually laughed. And said, I didn't think you'd figure it out. No apology. No regret. Just resignation. He sat down at the table like it was all business. Said he never planned to hurt me, but that I wouldn't have understood. That the money, the new name, the lease, they were all part of a plan to start over. He claimed he wanted to escape his past, build something without expectations or baggage. He looked me in the eye and said, you would have been fine. You're strong. You would have figured it out eventually. I didn't say anything. Because I was recording every word. The recording was perfect. His voice clear, his confession chilling in its simplicity. No remorse. No love. Just a man who thought he could outsmart everyone and walk away clean. I let him keep talking. Let him spin his twisted version of a noble escape. I didn't ask more questions. I didn't need to. Every sentence was another nail in the coffin. When he finally stood up, thinking we were done, I handed him an envelope. Inside was a single page, a signed letter from my attorney. Divorce papers, ready to file. His face turned. The smugness disappeared. I told him I'd already emptied our joint account. Every cent he hadn't touched was now safe, locked under my name. The bank flagged his recent withdrawals, and after I presented them with proof of identity theft tied to the Caleb Rowe alias, they froze the remaining funds. The burner phone? Disabled and reported. The apartment under the fake name? Already informed. Lease terminated. He had nothing left to walk away with. Not the money. Not the escape. Not even the lies. I told him he had 24 hours to pack what little belonged to him and get out. I'd be staying with a friend until he was gone. If he made trouble, the recording was going to every contact on his phone. And the police. He didn't say a word. He walked out that night with a single duffel bag and never came back. Dana and I never spoke again after that coffee shop meeting. She disappeared just as quietly as she arrived. I don't blame her. She was used, just like I was. It's been 3 months now. The divorce is finalized. The house is mine. The dog is happy. And me? I'm not broken. I'm rebuilding brick by brutal brick, but this time, the foundation is real. Sometimes I wonder what Eric's doing now. If he ever tried to become Caleb again. If someone else let him in with a broken down story and a charming smile. But then I remember. I'm not the one who lost everything. He is. And the best part? He never even saw it coming.